So we are here talking to Nathalie Walton today. Welcome to the show, Nathalie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited and I can't wait to get into this conversation. But first, I'm wondering, because of what you do and who you are, if you can give us one or two of your new mama hacks.
Whew. That is a great question. I have a lot. I think my number one mama hack is napping, and actually napping via meditation.
Mm,
Yes, I like to meditate and then fall asleep for a quick cat nap.
I love that. I love that. And that goes exactly with what we're going to be talking about. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that. I am Laura Cathcart Robbins, and this is the only one in the room. But I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co host, Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hey, honey. So, like I said, we're talking to Nathalie Walton. She is the Chief Executive CEO and co founder of Expectful app, which is made for hopeful, expectant, or new mothers. And I'm this is an incredible app, but your story is what drew me to you. So I want to get into your story, but first tell me, Natalie, how do you identify?
I identify as she, her.
Great, great. So you've been on a mission to provide holistic health and mindfulness resources with a focus on women, especially women of color, since experiencing your own high risk pregnancy. And when you and I talked, I went from stunned to enthralled to inspired. Can you tell us the story of your pregnancy?
Absolutely. So I've always been one who's been into holistic wellness. And so I took my pregnancy very seriously, wanting to do everything right from the beginning. And I was doing that. I was walking 10,000 steps a day, eating all the right foods. I thought, like, okay, I've got this. I'm going to have an amazing pregnancy and birth.
Yes.
Um, and somewhere along the line, around my 20-week scan, I went into the doctor's office getting ready to go on my Babymoon,
Okay.
thinking,
So wait, I
oh,
had never heard of a baby moon before you told me. Can you explain what a you hadn't either, right, hon?
No, and actually now Laura's been walking around asking everybody who's having a baby, haven't they? Have you been on your baby moon yet?
Yes, this
And I
is
look at her
true.
like
This is
one
so tell us
um,
one
what a
person
baby moon is.
one person knew about it though, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
well, if you haven't taken a baby moon and you have a baby, you should absolutely, or you're expecting a baby, you should take one. It's really kind of like a honeymoon. It's your last. You could say it's a moon before the baby comes. It's the
Right.
last time that you can enjoy being an adult with your partner. And
Right.
as
Uh-huh.
the pandemic happened after that, it's something that I truly cherish.
Yes. Yes.
It's
So
really smart.
right? It's
Hmm.
such a great idea. I'm sure that it was talked about. Maybe I just didn't have a name for it before, but so you had packed your bags to go on your baby moon, right? And
Yeah.
gone to the doctor for this 20-week scan. And then what
hmm
happened?
So I'm in the doctor's office thinking, like, okay, I've got this. We're just coming in here, and then I'm on my way out. And the doctor is taking a little bit longer to than usual. And when he came back in the room, he looked at my bags and he looked at me and he was confused. He's like, "Where do you think you're going?" And I told him, I'm like, "Well, my bags are packed. I am going on my baby moon." And he's like, "Whoa, wait a minute. You are not going anywhere because you are at high risk for preterm labor, and at 20 weeks, you could deliver your baby at any moment.
Mm,
So if you go anywhere that is not near a level 3 or 4 NICU, you could lose the baby." And that's
wow.
when things change.
Yeah, and a NICU, for anyone who doesn't know, is a
Uh,
it's a neonatal intensive care unit, right?
yes.
Yes. And that is, it is a necessary thing. If possible, you want to avoid, obviously, your baby having to go to the NICU because that means you're going to be separated from them for a little while after they're born. Tell me about the stress of that. Like once that finally, did you go home with your packed bags after that?
Yeah. So I had to. So for some reason, I kind of I was so shocked because everything had been going so well that I really wanted a second opinion. And so I was able to negotiate with the doctors to push everything a week out to see like, well, will things change? You know, can we get a second opinion here? So I did delay things by 1 week. But it just created a tremendous amount of stress because unfortunately, if you have a baby, really, I mean, there are examples of people that have had babies at 23 weeks, but it is a pretty grim situation. And so,
Right.
I mean, I started living my life in days and honestly hours thinking if I can just get to this day, then
Mhm.
my baby will be a little bit healthier. He will have gained a little bit more weight and
Yeah.
have a better chance at survival.
Sure. Were you Googling? Were you like just like on every website that talked about what they're like at this stage and what they can have and what abilities they have, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, I was doom Googling.
Doom Googling.
I
Yeah.
doom Googling. I was like doom Facebook groups, like trying to understand, what other women who experience or at risk for preterm labor, what this would look like. And I mean, honestly, the being in that kind of environment is also not healthy for you because some people their situation is much worse or it's different than yours, and
Right.
the outcomes can be really scary. So I went from being a pretty stable person to just having a ton of anxiety, and it just created a tremendous amount of stress.
Sure. And then so at what point did you decide to download Expectful?
So, somewhere in my third trimester, at this point, I was going to the doctor's office really about 5 days a week. I was
Wow.
going, yeah, I was going to the hospital. And I remember this because I was so frustrated because I had to go in for these long tests,
Mhm.
um, Doppler and NST tests you basically wait for your baby to move. And if you didn't time your breakfast right, you could
Right.
be waiting there for like 2 hours. So on top of that, like I'm missing work, and what was actually honestly most frustrating was paying for parking. It's like $10 an hour, and I'd often like just miss the 2 hour mark, and it's like,
Yes.
yeah. So that was something I found amusing. But somewhere along my third trimester, I from doom googling, I think the internet knew that I was struggling, and I saw an Instagram ad for Expectful.
Mhm.
And at the time, Expectful was a meditation and sleep app. And I've had a meditation practice. I started meditating in 2000, in the year 2000. So for a long
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
I can't say I've been a good meditator, but I've been pretty familiar with it. But there was something that changed. So when I started using Expectful, and doing pregnancy specific meditations, I got really into hypnobirthing.
Mm.
Something in me stabilized. So the Dopplers and the NST tests that I was taking on a pretty much daily basis, they started to stabilize and things stopped getting worse. And the most amazing thing happened was that I made it to 38 weeks and 1 day, which is I made it to term.
Wow.
And
Wow.
no one thought that was possible. And so I really credit my survival to um, this app and the meditations on the app.
Well, tell me what's a pregnancy meditation and why is that different than a regular meditation?
Yeah, so pregnancy meditations, in particular hypnobirthing, they
Yeah, I
are.
want to know about that too. So good.
I can get into both. So pregnancy meditation and with Expectful. So we have now daily meditations throughout pregnancy, starting from the day you realize you're pregnant, all the way through 42 weeks. And we wrote them with OBs. And so basically, we know exactly what you're going through
Mm.
at any given day in pregnancy. And we have over 1,600 meditations that talk to you everything from like gestational diabetes to your tests. And what's different about a pregnancy meditation is that in pregnancy, there are a lot of specific anxieties that are like very specific to pregnancy. Like, am I going to pass my gestational diabetes test?
Yes.
Um, or it's like, I have this weird pain in my stomach or my back. And the pregnancy meditations speak to the fears that you have, but they
Mm.
really empower you to help you understand like this is your body is capable of doing what um, of bringing the baby to life. And for me, that was my biggest anxiety, was that I wasn't capable of getting to term, and the pregnancy meditation spoke exactly to my fears and gave me the support I needed.
Wow. So, and then what is hypnobirthing?
So, hypnobirthing is a breathing technique that enables many women to reduce their reliance on pain medications during labor. So oftentimes people will use hypnobirthing in lieu of an epidural, which is actually what I did. But it's really it's a supportive breathing process, regardless if you have a medicated or unmedicated birth, to support you through your pregnancy and through your birth. And
Hmm.
it's a breathing exercises and also really empowering affirmations that help you realize that like your body in pregnancy, when you're in labor and contracting, your body is doing exactly what it is meant to do. And I can't tell you, like, I've never experienced a more empowering thing than hypnobirthing.
Is there a scientific explanation for why there was this shift once you started this particular type of meditation that far into your pregnancy?
There is, and it's unbelievable. I the research. I mean, there've been research studies, but we just had two research studies come out. So the first research study was published in the Journal of Midwifery and Women's Health earlier this year, and that study looked at women in pregnancy and saw that women who used Expectful saw their perinatal stress reduced by 25%.
Wow.
And when you think about that and you look into other studies, it's very clear that pregnancy stress is related to preterm labor. And so by reducing my
Mm.
stress, I was able to extend my pregnancy and make it to term. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, it's incredible. And then there's another study. So I was a NICU mother as well, and another study that is so near and dear to my heart. This came out last month in the Journal of Perinatology, and this study looked at pumping NICU moms and saw that NICU mothers who used Expectful saw their breast milk production increase by 7.5 ounces a day.
What?
Um,
That's
yeah, I mean that's two
amazing.
to three bottles.
Yeah.
And
That
I was NICU mom. I couldn't. I was not. Unfortunately, like I really struggled in that area of making milk, and it was so frustrating because I just gone through a really challenging time, and as a mom, I felt like this is the only thing I can do to support my
mm,
baby. I'm separated from him, and I didn't use Expectful during my pumping journey because I just, I just given birth. My mind was is in another place,
right,
but
right.
if I could help other, new moms that struggle, 92% of mothers struggle with breastfeeding. I hope that the scientific evidence can help them there.
Is that right? 92% of mothers struggle with it?
Yeah, with breastfeeding, there's an
Wow.
NPR study that found that, which is, I believe it. I mean,
Mhm.
for me, it was much harder than labor.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own breastfeeding stories, and not that my kids wouldn't latch, but it was so painful.
Hmm.
It was like everything hurt so badly. I couldn't like it took two people to hold his leg and two people to hold his arms, and then they would move him toward me, and then I could, grab him but if he was flailing and like hit the breast around before, oh, it was too much pain. Um so you mentioned that you were a NICU mom. Tell us about your son's birth.
So my son's birth, it ended up being quite traumatic. Even though I did make it to term, we still did have complications, and I ended up having a placental abruption.
Hmm.
So my entire labor happened. From start to finish within a couple of hours. And I honestly, partially because the hypnobirthing, I was just sitting in my room and I was deeply meditating. And I thought, oh, okay, like, I have some cramps. Like, this isn't so bad. Maybe this is what happens when the first time you have a baby. But I was so tuned in to my meditations that it
Wow.
kind of just happened. And it ended up in an emergency C-section. And because of the complications, we had a 2-week NICU stay. Right now, I mean, today we're fine, but I think really we had a harrowing first couple of weeks, months. Honestly, the first year was quite a challenge.
Well, yeah, and I mean, an abruption is a rupture, right? It's
Hmm.
yeah, and that I mean that is traumatic. I can only imagine that after that you probably needed meditation even more. right? To get through that year that you're describing. Is that right?
Yeah, I did, and I mean, because I had always been meditating, or I've had this practice. I actually didn't use the app as much as I would have liked. I later started after like leaving the hospital, but it's I needed that. I don't know if I actually would have survived the NICU
Mm-hmm.
in those first few weeks if I didn't have a grounding practice, just because there's so much that's out of your control and
Yeah.
which can create so much worry and anxiety. Like, is my child going to live? Is he going to be okay? And as a mother, I mean, that was the only thing I cared about. I imagine today it's still, I just want my child to be happy.
Yes.
And having tools to control my mind when I can't control anything else, it's so critical to have that kind of a tool.
Yeah. And you were introduced to me, and I don't remember if it was a week or a day, but it was like Black Maternal Health Awareness Week, was it?
Yes, Black Maternal Health Week.
Okay. Um, I want you to tell me why that's important, why it should be a year and not a week, and and talk about Black women and pregnancy in this country and what the statistics are around that.
Yeah, I mean, Black Maternal Health Week and Black Maternal Health, it's really in an unfortunate state in the US. So, Black women die at rates of 3 to 4 times that of white women. And the sad reality is that actually, the more educated a Black woman is, the more likely she is to die. So, a Black woman with a graduate degree is as likely to die in pregnancy and birth as a white woman with an eighth grade education. And
But why? Why
going,
is that?
it's due to systemic racism. It really is. I think. I mean, there's research that shows that doctors don't take Black women's complaints as seriously as white women.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But
that's
why if she's more educated? I don't understand that.
yeah, I think I mean this is really getting into nuance, but there is a bias and just discrediting the education of that
Mm,
Black woman, thinking that they are less than, that they don't know as much.
right.
I mean, going into pregnancy, I saw the stories about Serena Williams,
Yes.
Allison Felix, Beyonce,
Mhm.
and these are Black women that I admire, and they're at the top of their game. And I knew, I mean, if Beyonce is, not being taken seriously, I'm not going to be taken seriously. And I think because I had so many complications, I mean, I have a graduate degree from Stanford. My husband has a graduate degree from Stanford. And the way that we were treated in the hospital and with some of our doctors was just, it was really embarrassing. I mean, we were lied to. We had to fiercely advocate for ourselves. And my entire pregnancy, I kept thinking, like, what would happen to me if I didn't feel comfortable advocating for myself? What would
Yeah.
happen to me if I didn't read the 200-page report on, what is going on, so that I had the facts? And so it's a really unfortunate, and it's frustrating, and it's angering how Black women, the outcomes that pregnant Black women face in the US.
Wow. So this is regardless of educational background and economic background, right?
Yes.
These two factors do not make Black women more listened to when they have complaints or concerns. And in fact, as you're saying, the more education they have, they're even less listened to because
Yeah.
they're dismissed out of
Hmm.
hand. That's just, it's so sad to me. I believe you. I had this talk with you, and then I went and I found so much evidence to support what you're saying. Not that I didn't believe what you were saying, but I wanted to make sure I was coming to this conversation as well prepared as possible. And article after article and study after study just underscored what you're saying. And that, yeah, it just makes me sad. It almost feels futile, right? But it's not, is it? Like there are things that we can do and ways that we can navigate around this. Um So first I want to talk about, before I talk about like what we can do and what Expectful helps us do. Um, so you were on maternity leave after your son was born, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't really talk about your background, but you're from the startup world, yes? Like,
A
so
big
yeah,
tech world,
the
yeah.
tech world. So you want to just talk a little bit about what brought you to that point and where you were,
Yeah.
yeah, career wise.
So I started my career, now that we might be entering a new recession. In the last recession, I started my career in finance and quickly realized it wasn't for me. And I came out to California to visit Stanford's business school. And there was something about it where I knew I had to go to Stanford. And so I made everything in my will to get into Stanford, and I was fortunate to do that. And after graduating 10 years ago, I entered tech, and so I worked at eBay and their business incubation group, and then I worked at Google for 5.5 years, followed by a stint at Airbnb. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it was a little I'm a little risk averse, and honestly, there really weren't many entrepreneurs back then that looked like me. I mean, there still aren't today,
Hmm.
and so it was a little intimidating.
Yeah. And then, so, but you've used this Expectful app during the last term of your pregnancy, the last trimester rather, and now you're on maternity leave. So I'm taking us
Hmm.
back to then. How is it that you become the founder, CEO, and chief executive officer or executive officer of Expectful from where you were then? How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, so I was a user of the app, and because I've always had these entrepreneurial inklings, I in my mind I was thinking, what are ways to get into entrepreneurship without quitting my day job? And one of those opportunities that popped up is maybe I can become an advisor to a company. And given that I had just
Mm.
had this amazing experience with Expectful. And I was still at the time very much so a new mom. Through a mutual connection, I was able to get introduced to the founder of the company
Hmm.
and position myself as I could leverage all of my skill set to help you. And it's a win-win for both of us. So I joined Expectful by becoming an advisor with no intention to take over the company, but just to dip my toes in entrepreneurial waters.
Right, right. And then, so then what happened?
So I started in the spring of 2020. And over the course of the next few months, I formed a great relationship with the founder. I signed a couple of big deals for the company. My background was in biz dev and partnerships. And the founder asked me over the summer if I would consider taking over the company as
Wow.
a late stage co founder and CEO. And at first I didn't know what to say, but after I really thought about everything that I had just been through over the last year and just this position to affect change, I it was something that I could not turn down. And so
Mm.
in September of 2020, I um, came on as a late stage co-founder and CEO. I raised our seed round. I raised $4.2 million of venture capital in my first 90 days on the job. Um, Being one of very few Black
Wow.
women to raise that
Yeah.
kind of amount, and also so quickly. And I've been at work building my vision ever since.
Incredible. And a very late congratulations, but that's amazing. That is
Thank you.
really, I mean, I love your journey. I love that you were, in this tech world, and then your focus was on your baby when you were pregnant, and being like the best, giving your baby the best foundation, right? Having this, putting all your intention into your pregnancy and being holistic and being thoughtful, and then, there's this 20-week kind of derailing of what you thought it was going to look like, and then so you use this app that you found to really ground you in your pregnancy. You're able to carry the baby to term, and then, the you become the late stage founder and chief executive and COO of, or CEO of this app. It's just not something I've heard before. And I love that you're a Black woman. taking this journey, because you're right. You don't see very many people, or I don't see very many people who look like you, especially having the success that you've had. It is really inspiring. So I want to talk about two things next. I just want to say that Expectful is the most real Instagram I've ever seen,
Oh,
ever
thank
seen.
you.
So two pregnant friends of mine, they were both already on it. I was really excited after our first talk, and I was like, "Let me show you this thing." They were both already on it. They're not snatched size 2 postpartum mothers with perfect blonde ponytails and workout gear, which is what you see a lot of on social media,
Mhm.
right? Your app has an array of women, including an abundance of women of color in all shapes and sizes. You'll see pictures of hanging umbilical cords and stretch marks, loose skin, cesarean scars, women sobbing, right? You'll see women nursing, not very daintily, looking like they're ready for a photo shoot, but like what it really looks like when you're in the middle of the day and there are diapers everywhere and you're nursing. Women bathing. There's one shot of a woman with two babies, one in like an infant tub, one in the bathtub, and she's sitting next to it and she's eating what I imagine is a cold plate of food
Yeah.
because she's bathing her babies and trying to get some food in. So first of all, bravo.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for that. And second of all, I want to know why you decided to be that real with it. And then also how that helps you to grow the brand, or if it does. I don't know if it's at odds with it, but I want to know how that works together.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenge for me was becoming a mother was no one really talks about how challenging it is. People will say like, enjoy your maternity leave, enjoy every moment of it, and there's a lot to enjoy, but it is also, I mean, it's one of the most challenging times in someone's life, and it is real and it is messy, and I don't think anyone does any service to women to not showcase what it's like. And I think that being vulnerable and helping other women understand like, okay, this is normal, it helps us all. It helps us all be normalize what we're going through. It helps us
Yeah.
get the help that we need. And I think overall it's just a benefit to society. And so that was really, there's no way that we can be fake. I mean, I couldn't lead a company where we're just showing the glamorous parts of pregnancy and motherhood because it's not glamorous.
Right, right. No, it's not.
It
It's
is
not
not.
at all. Mm-mm.
No,
And
and
then,
I think go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say and to answer your question about growing the brand, users really appreciate at least our users, they appreciate the authenticity. No one wants to, I mean, your body changes after pregnancy, and
Yeah.
no one wants to feel ashamed that they have stretch marks or like maybe that their clothes are, they need a size larger in clothes or two. And so just keeping it real, it does help our community because people feel like they belong.
Yes. And I was going to ask you, did you get any pushback from including so many, making it so diverse? Um, because I looked after our talk, I looked at other pregnancy apps. I just don't see very many that are quite as diverse, not just in situations and the, like I said, the realness you're showing, but also, is there any pushback from having so many women of color, specifically Black women, in present it to us that way?
To be totally transparent, there could be. I actually but I ignore it. And so I don't, I try not to read a lot of the comments because earlier on at my time in Expectful, for example, we showed, or I mean, we do. I make it a point. I have actually a system so that I'm very systematic about this of the number of posts and everything that we do. It needs to have a certain percentage of diversity of people of color, of people with disabilities, of different genders shown, and
Mhm.
so I'm very intentional about that. But in the beginning, I remember just seeing really nasty comments about showing two women, and like
Oh.
I'm not going to tolerate that because
Mhm.
I am a very inclusive. And so I think for me, getting into the reading the comments on a regular basis was bad for my mental health. And so
Yeah.
I knew that this was important to me, and I know that it's important to others. And so I just choose to ignore it. So I think we do probably get a little bit of pushback, but it's okay, because I think to do the right thing, you have to be willing to take some bruises. So I just ignore it.
Sure, sure. And you mentioned right at the top when we talked about new mama hacks, napping with Expectful. Um, did you say while the baby naps or no? I don't remember if you
Yeah,
said
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
my son is 2 years old now, and I take naps every weekend. When he takes a very long nap, and this is my luxury. There is one meditation that I love. It's a sound bath meditation. It's called Gong
Mm.
for Sleep. I will put that on, honestly, even a rough day, I will put that on. And there's something, I love sound bath meditations. They're so soothing. I'll fall asleep, and I'll wake up feeling so much better, like infinitely
Yeah.
better. And I started this practice when my son was just a little baby, and we would only get like 20 or 30-minute naps. And now we get 3-hour naps. But it's you have to do that. I mean, you have to recharge and prioritize yourself, because if not, you're just going to fall apart.
I love that. First of all, a 3-hour nap. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And then also, what a beautiful thing you're modeling for him. Like I remember, Scott's heard me say this a few times. When my boys first went to middle school, or when the first one did, the middle school principal came out and gave a talk to all the parents. It was like, the first, whatever, that parent teacher something. Um, but it was our introduction to the school. And he said, "Parents, please do not come home from work and say I need a cocktail when you get home because it's been a rough day. Show your children other ways to unwind and relax. You are modeling for them how they treat anxiety, depression, blah blah blah, with your behavior.
Mhm.
And so what you're modeling for your son is you don't actually need a substance. You can take care of yourself. It's not even just to treat something, but it's self-care in this way. And I mean, I just think that's a an incredible message to give to new moms. Um it's not a message I got when I was a new mom, and I did use other sources eventually. And I'm wondering, are you considering evolving the app to go beyond new moms, like through parenthood? Because there are so many just really stressful stages of it. You know what I mean?
No, there certainly are. I mean, I think the long-term answer to that is yes, absolutely. We're actually, we have a lot of content for pregnancy. That is our biggest area. But I think our next step is actually getting it more into fertility, because I
Yes.
just hear from so many users that have really harrowing fertility journeys, that ruin their self-esteem, their self-worth. And I think that there's a huge impact that we can have there. There's also research too that shows that reducing stress in pregnant and fertility leads to better pregnancy outcomes. And
Yeah.
then also with what's going on in the world today. So I mean, we have a section for loss. So anyone that's going through a miscarriage, and that section is actually
Mm.
completely free. So anyone that is going through that can just download the app. But by the end of the month, we're releasing a section on terminations, of how do you, when you're terminating your pregnancy, how do you get the support that you need? And so we are working with trauma informed specialists to help create these meditations for abortion, which I think, in today's day and age, like who knows what's going to happen, but women need support more than ever.
Wow. Yes, they do. Yes, we do. Thank you for that. That I hadn't even considered that as part of something that Expectful might look at or offer support for. That's amazing. Um, and yes, where the world is going right now, one never knows. I think people who are looking at termination will need all the support they can get, and an app would probably be an unexpected source, but a very welcome one, I would imagine, because it connects you, right,
It
to other
does.
people. Tell me how that works. How does the app connect you to other people?
So we have live events. We have over 50 live events a month, and these range from prenatal yoga classes to womb healing. So if you are going through a loss or termination, like we have a group called Womb Healing, and it's a womb healing meditation. And our app is actually very international. So about 40% of our users are abroad. And I often see users from like that last week we had someone from Zambia and from Australia on the same meditation, on the same live event as people from New York City. And it's just, to me, it's such a beautiful reminder that on this planet, we're all going through the same thing,
Yeah.
and to be connected with women. And so it's a live events platform where you can just find an event that speaks to you, whether it's office hours with a pelvic floor therapist or a lactation consultant, infant sleep consultants we have,
Mm.
or it's, like a womb healing or a pregnancy affirmation live event. We have them all.
Wow. What's a pregnancy affirmation?
So let's see. It's an example is I am powerful beyond. My body is powerful,
I
and
see.
so these
Yeah.
are affirmations that we. It's kind of like hypnobirthing, actually, where you empower women. And I
Hmm.
mean, there's definitely I don't know if I haven't read scientific studies on the power of affirmations, but I know that affirmations are powerful. And if you hear if you say and give yourself the permission to feel your power, you will feel more powerful.
Well, and one feels more powerful when one is connected to other people who are with whom you're sharing this experience,
Hmm.
right? It just I'm always amazed by that. There's power in grief like that, right? When you're gathered to grieve something or someone, there's a power there that doesn't exist when you're alone. And the same for celebrations and for affirmations, I would imagine. Um,
Yes.
Beautiful. So tell me where people can find you and find the app.
So our app is available on the Google Play Store, on Apple Store. You could just search for Expectful, but you can also find us at expectful.com or on Instagram at Expectful. And I am at Nathalie with an H, Nathalie Walton, on Instagram.
Wonderful. And yes, check out Natalie's Instagram, but really check out Expectful's Instagram.
Yes.
You will get hooked and hopefully be as inspired as I am. I'm not somebody, I've had my kids, like I'm done, but it's still inspiring to me to see all these beautiful women in all these different shapes and sizes and states, and I can't think of what the next word I'm looking for is, but all these different like categories of where they are, and just all out there and showing you what it looks like and it looks like they're doing it proudly, which I really love. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. This was so good. It was exactly what I was hoping for. Actually, it was more than what I was hoping for. So you gave me what I came for in this interview, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, I so appreciate you. And this was such a delightful conversation. Thank you. Hi, I'm Nathalie Walton, and I'm the only one who used an app to carry her baby to term.